Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Culture Books podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by
Sheridan.
And it is the 28th of July, 2023 that we're recording. Not that it matters, as these books are timeless, and certainly so is this podcast. And we are on episode 6, which is covering chapter 3 of Use of Weapons in the third season of this podcast.
Yay.
That's way more numbers than we need, but this is a chapter that... a book that makes life very complicated on that front. Possibly the most complicated chapter structure in any book that certainly I've ever read.
Yes, I would agree. You've read more books than me.
Thank you, Sheridan. Okay, now what do we do now, Sheridan?
Now you have 30 seconds to recap what's happened in the story so far.
Okay.
3, 2, where's your timer?
It's right here.
3, 2, 1, go.
So the culture are a bunch of super intelligent minds in space, and they keep a lot of trillions of humans in space. And Xenophobe Sma has been tasked to go and find her former colleague Sheridan and Zakawi so they can stop a war in space. And they are travelling towards where they think he might be.
Good work.
Thank you.
Well in time. In
Yeah.
fact, is that thing even on?
Yeah, it's got a little while to go.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so now Sheridan is going to attempt to give us the summary of this chapter in 30 seconds. 3, 2, 1.
Sma and Skaffen are on a ship with people that are full of viruses and a mind that's like a little cuddly toy called Zenny. And then they have a drug-addled fancy dress party where Zenny and Skaffen try and hide from Sma that they have no idea where they're going and they have no idea where Zakawi is. But she finds out and gets a bit mad, but then glands some drugs and becomes pretty impressed by... So they had one more line.
Okay, come on, give it to us.
She becomes pretty impressed by how Zakawi escaped from their clutches. And that's the end of the story. Okay.
Nice one. You actually got the main plot points down. I think that might be a first.
You notice I do better in the chapters that aren't about technology or hardcore sci-fi.
Or dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This chapter had a lot of banter and it got me... I could keep up.
It was mostly banter, and it also had the first time that I can recall in these books so far where the machines are talking to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was probably the first time, because you always say that the minds keep the humans as pets.
Yeah.
This was very, very clear in this chapter.
Oh, the mind was an absolute zookeeper of the people. Yep. And even with just saying, oh, should I even bother keeping them around?
Yeah.
Oh, but I'd miss them. Just like, when the dogs have been bad and we'll be like, oh, there's more trouble than they're worth. Oh, we'd miss them. Yes. So it opens with a great line. Sma suspected a lot of ships' crews were crazy. For that matter, she suspected a fair few of the ships themselves weren't totally together in the sanity department either. How long did it take you to figure out what was up with Disgrave?
That he was sick? Well, because I listened to the audiobook, it's actually pretty obvious straight away. And actually, I tend to I listen to the audiobook, but I'm often walking the dog, so I lose bits, and then I skim read the chapter before I do the podcast, generally. The times I don't do that is generally when I am worse at remembering. And I realised when I reread it how hard it would have been if you hadn't have had the audiobook.
I think it's something every author in the English language likes to play with, is how you write words when people have a cold.
Yeah.
Like Tolkien used to do it a lot, but he's by no means unique. And I think that writers just really enjoy it, even though it's extremely unpleasant for readers.
Especially because he says, I have a cob.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
I like the hello. the voice acting on the audiobook's quite good. In fact, I wanted to ask you a question later about what sort of voice you think Zenny would have.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, that'll be good to talk about. So you've gone full for Zenny?
Yeah.
As opposed to the ship's full name?
Yes.
Right, Xenophobe.
Well, it calls itself Zenny throughout the whole thing.
Right, so we're going with the self-identification. I know, but it's just, we'll talk a lot about Xenophobe. Okay, so we meet the guy and then we realise that the crew's got this little fetish going on where they're playing around with giving themselves colds so they can experience what life was like for people who could actually get sick. But they're still really just sickness tourists.
Yeah.
Which is very annoying to people who can actually get sick. And, okay, so then we meet the crew, a bunch of people standing around, and then we meet Zenny, a little bundle of brown and yellow fur. It was warm, had 4 limbs, arranged conventionally, smelled attractive, and wasn't any sort of animal she'd ever seen before. It had large ears on a large head, and as she held it, it opened its huge eyes and looked at her. "That's the ship," the man who'd handled her, the animal, said. "Hello," the tiny being squeaked. Sma looked it up and down. "You're the Xenophobe?" And remember, this is a huge, powerful warship, which we're going to talk about more. "It's representative, the bit you can talk to. You can just call me Zenny," it smiled. It had little round teeth. "I know most ships can use a drone," but it glanced at Skaffen. "They can be a bit boring, don't you think?"
It is pretty cute.
Yep.
I imagine it looks a little bit like the gremlins before they turn into gremlins.
I thought about asking Midjourney for the cover art for this episode to just give me Gizmo.
Yeah.
But I actually think it came out with quite a nice image for this. Although the trouble with one of the things with Midjourney is when you give it any color descriptions for a part of the image, you end up with it in all of the image.
Yeah, right.
Which is deeply annoying. Yes. Okay, so what did you make of the warship's mind being represented by this cute, cuddly little animal?
Well, it's clearly trying to make itself look less threatening than it actually is.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about this, and we'll get to the conversation they have, but I know a reasonable number of people who've actually gone and, killed people in war. And I could see quite a few of them in their downtime as a way to deal with that, dressing up as furries and, doing...
Trying to make themselves nicer.
Doing really cuddly stuff. Yeah. So you can sort of see how this ultra-deadly warship, it might just enjoy playing the cuddler.
It seems to be doing it, though, to manipulate the humanoids.
Manipulate them how?
Well, because when he says, "Can I cuddle up with you when you sleep?"
Yeah, that did seem a bit sexual, didn't it?
And she was like, "What?" And it's like, just for chumminess sake. And I'm not being rude, it's a good bonding procedure.
Which is what creepers say when they try and get into bed with you. Yeah.
It's a bit...
And then the dialogue, "Listen, Xenophobe. Zenny, you're a 1,000,000-ton starship, a torturer-class rapid offense unit. But I'm demilitarized. Even without your principal armament, I bet you could waste planets if you wanted to. Oh, come on, any silly GCU can do that." Which does sort of come back to just how scary the culture really is. Okay. And then what do you think of the way Zenny started snarking back at her?
In what way?
When it's like, "What's your problem, lady? Have you got something against small furry animals or what? Look, Miss Sma, I know very well I'm a ship, and I do everything I'm asked to do, including taking you to this frankly rather fuzzily specified destination, and do it very efficiently too. And if it was the slightest sniff of any real action and I had to start acting like a warship, this construct in your hands would go lifeless and limp immediately, and I'd battle as ferociously and decisively as I've been trained to."
But that's where I think it is trying to manipulate her, because later when he turns into a big furry animal, like, "Well, I thought you didn't like small furry animals, so I tried this instead." Like, it's not doing it for itself, it's doing it to try and make her...
To ingratiate.
Yeah.
Yes, and then he gets really snarky, "The last thing I want to do is offend a guest."
I like it, then it's like, "Cuddle?"
And then, finally when she's, cuddling this furry machine and she looks and sees Skaffen lying dramatically on its back in midair, its aura field flashing the lurid orange that was used to signal sick drone in extreme distress.
It was a funny chapter. There was a lot of jokes in it, I thought.
Okay, nice one. I don't even know how you get that into a movie. You'd have to get the idea of the signalling sick drone in distress in well before. And, I mean, I did love that just dropped in there slightly, this very fuzzily specified destination, and Sma's immediately onto it.
Well, she doesn't want to be there, so she's constantly calculated in her head how long she's going to be away for.
30 days with a crew of viral masochists and a ship that thinks it's a cuddly toy. And what did you think of Skaffen's efforts to hide from her that he doesn't know where they're going?
Well, I thought it was pretty obvious.
Which bit?
Well, he was really lucky that she didn't know what that...
Crastalia?
System was.
Mm-hmm. Well, cluster. Yeah.
Cluster, yeah.
Yeah. Hundreds of millions of stars, yeah.
That's where you realise that all the minds, even though it's not a mind, but the machines are actually the ones that are in power, like manipulating.
Where'd you get that insight?
Well, because it's literally trying to cover up something up from her. Like, she's meant to control it. And
also, it knows that it can just give her a name and she won't know all the names, whereas a computer would instantly be automatically looking it up and seeing that. Yes. What did you think about the way she was just dumping clothes on the floor and the drone was cleaning up after her?
Well, that's where it's kind of manipulative, right? Because she thinks she's in control of it because it's a servant. I mean, I'm sort of thinking of Google Home right now. That, we think we're controlling it, but all this could go quite bad later because maybe it's controlling us.
We probably want to leave some lights in the house that aren't controlled by Google.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, because it's her servant, she thinks that she's in control, but she's really not. Mm-hmm. And even, how it goes to, such extremes to, chromatically sort her socks.
Yes. Well, it's just doing the thing she likes, but also for a machine, it's no actual effort for it. Its mind can be off playing four-dimensional chess with something, and meanwhile, it's just zzz. Yeah. There was a... I thought it was a bit cheeky, her saying, I'm going to sleep. Take my boots off, will you? And gently but quickly, the drone slipped Sma's boots off, gathered her jacket and hung it in a walk-in cupboard, swept the bags in there too. Then, as Sma turned over in the bedfield, eyes fluttering closed, the drone slipped out of the room. That, it said to itself, was close. Then it went for a wander. And then, what did you think of the whole scene with the 3-meter tall version of Zenny turning up at the door?
Well, I thought it was pretty funny.
It was very exciting, though, with Sma thinking she, being on the edge of screaming, and then before she could even actually scream, the drone's got 3 knife missiles between her and the thing and a protective field. Yeah. You have any other thoughts on that bit?
Well, the mind and Skaffen are having a full-blown argument in the moment of a pause.
Yes.
That she has no idea about.
Yes. Yeah. And I did like the way it got that idea of just how fast these machines are talking to each other, and then the way the ship continued on a totally different subject where it just decided, we're going to have a party tonight. Do you want to play dress-ups?
Even that was quite manipulative. It seemed to think, this is a way to distract the human. They like dressing up. Mm-hmm. And they like parties. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to create this, fake party where there's all these holograms walking around because there's really only, 10 people
20,
in this thing.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That would help for a party, frankly, when there's 20 people who already know each other very well.
I don't know. Would you really want to have a party with 20 people that you live on a ship with? I think I'd just rather go and play video games. You see them all the time.
Yeah, but sometimes you have parties with your work colleagues.
Well, they're pretty hopeless humans because they immediately do the thing that they were asked not to do, like within 1 second.
Well, hang on, we'll get to that. We will get to that. What do you think of the description of the lengths the ship had to go to set up a party for these losers?
I really liked... Oh, this sounds like a fun party, though.
Mm-hmm.
Prepare to feast and put as many human brain chemistry-altering chemicals into the various dishes and drinks as would normally be regarded proper without attaching a specific sanity warning to each bowl, plate, jug, or glass. I mean, that sounds fun.
Yes, I mean, the culture, they don't have any taboos about drugs. They're like, yeah, drugs are awesome, let's have some.
And I mean, after the party, Sma just goes back and does some more.
Yeah. Now, we did mention this, the bit where the ship sent formal invitations to each of the crew, specified a strict rule of no shop talk. It hoped that this, plus the narcotic wealth of the consumables, would keep everybody off the subject of where exactly they were headed for. It had toyed with the idea of just telling people there was a problem here and asking them not to talk about it, but suspected there were at least 2 of the crew who would take such a prescription as a challenge to their integrity, requiring them to raise the issue at the first possible opportunity. Which, boy, that sounds like a lot of groups that I've been part of. And possibly me. Yes, and then of course it was on occasions like this that Xenophobe tended to consider changing its status to that of an unstaffed ship. But I'd miss the little scamps.
Well, no, it's like when your dog sort of annoys you, you think, oh God, should I get another one? They're a lot of work. And then you're like, no, it's so cute.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of Xenophobe's different drone for the party?
Sorry, say that again.
Xenophobe's remote drone for the party? Doesn't come as a little furry animal.
The fish in the bubble.
Yeah.
I like how it's kept the same colour scheme, though.
Yeah.
Like the brown and the orange. Or whatever. Like, it's a weird colour for a fish, right?
Plenty of fish are brown and yellow.
Maybe.
But yeah, so, drifting through the party like a water balloon.
I just love how when it's all going bad, it pretends that it's drowning. It's like it's a fish.
Water! I mean, there was a lot of slapstick, and this was one of those scenes that, again, you're like, wow, this could make for some great television.
Oh, yeah, I thought this was really well written.
With the continuing escalating stakes of trying to stop the humans talking to each other about where the hell is this ship going.
Yeah, like Skaffen running full ball into that woman. And knocking her off her feet.
Yeah, the crew start fighting Skaffen. And
oh, sorry.
What the hell are you doing? And then once finally Sma knows that it's an open cluster they're heading to, with there must be 500,000 stars in it. Sma's mouth was in the shape of a smile. It was not an expression Skaffen had learned to view with anything other than extreme trepidation. And then the little conversation while Sma's sort of frozen in time between the 2 machines. The ship just, saying, I'm out of here. This is not my problem. You deal with this.
You deal with your human.
Although it did say, interesting choice of language, this is your prototype. Referring to Sma.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Like, yeah.
Very odd word for that. Yeah. And without the very clear context, that would make no sense whatsoever with the context. Like, okay, so what are they trying to say there? Yes. So from the computer's point of view, Sma is Skaffen's pet.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was the first time for me that it was like super obvious that they're in control.
Okay. That's good. And then, interesting, they've got a lot of Sma getting around in short shorts in this.
Well, they don't actually say they're short shorts. She's just got shorts on but nothing else.
Yeah.
It could be big basketball shorts for all you know. Actually, that was weirdly what I pictured it.
Really?
It was stupid. It was really dumb. Like, in my mind, I was like...
I've got skin-tight boxes in my mind, but... yeah. Sure. Okay. It's a shame that look was not communicated verbally, or maybe it's not. So she's sitting semi-naked, glanding calm, which she's probably doing just to intimidate him, being like, "However furious I'm going to be now, just imagine that this has already been tamped down by drugs." And we finally get the story of how Zakawi got away from the knife missile.
And she seems very impressed by it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting thing here. This is written 70s, 80s. A lot of science fiction authors around now did spend a bit of time, because MRIs were very new machines then.
I must admit, this was the one part of the chapter that I was a bit tuned out of, because once I was like, magnets?
Okay.
Science!
So basically, Zakawi had used an MRI to slow the knife missile down with its magnets.
I did not pick that up.
Yeah. Okay. In this period, there were quite a few science fiction writers who played around with the ideas of MRIs having a place in science fiction, whereas now they're just something that's in a hospital and no one thinks too much about them.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Anyway, everyone's very impressed that they do mention luck. We talked before about whether Zakawi had a luck thing going, like Horza.
So when she starts asking, like, giving he calls it, I think, Skaffen calls it psychobabble, I think. Psychobabble sleuthing or something like that. But when she starts saying, he won't be in a forest or he'll be here and be there, like, where does all that come from?
Well, she knows him really well.
Yeah, but, like, there's no backstory that...
We'll get some backstory on places Zakawi likes to be and go, but it's basically, that's just her saying, I know him. You're trying to narrow down out of these 500 million, not 500,000 stars that he could be in where he is. So here's some things you can cut out of the analysis, which is actually a very handy thing to provide.
It's kind of, I wonder if Skaffen, because it says he wouldn't usually have gone after that amateur psychological sleuthing, but he bit his metaphorical tongue. I mean, does he do that because he thinks that she's potentially onto something, or because he just wants to placate her because he's just lied to her?
No, he's in the doghouse.
Yeah, so it's just a little unclear whether he's like, well, I actually don't know any better, so maybe I'll go with this weird human assessment of another human. Like, I don't get them.
No, it's more just because he's in the doghouse right now. So what he doesn't want is her, the cultural equivalent of FOIing their conversation and finding out that he hadn't forwarded her thoughts. And I mean, he does make a good point that they've got, an enormous amount of resources in the Crastalia system and more pouring in to find Zakawi. The idea that he can stay hidden forever from what's looking for him is... unlikely. But there is also the question of, is he trying to live his life or is he actually trying to hide?
Yeah.
Which is, the point at which they're, trying to set about the parameters for the search. And we're nearly done with the chapter, but then did you get what was happening in the very last line when she's telling Skaffen that it's a bit boring that he's dressed as a warship and maybe he should try something else?
Yeah, because he turned into a creepy skeezer.
I think he turned into Zakawi. So she says to him as an insult...
Well, it could have been any of the men that she's been with.
No. Okay, let's go through this. The machine...
It's somehow anonymous-looking young man. And also, Zakawi's not young.
Yeah, but he's always referred to as the young man.
I didn't pick that up.
The fact it's young man.
You're right.
I'm 100% sure. So let's just go through it. So the drone's like, okay, well, any suggestions what I should come as? And she says... What would suit you? I mean, what is the perfect role model for a cowardly, lying, patronising, hypocritical bastard with no trust in or respect for another person? Which is her being, pretty freaking rude. But then, she turns around and instead of the drones, she saw a classically proportioned, handsome, but somehow anonymous-looking young man following her down the corridor. And I am personally 100% sure that he's looking like Zakawi in that moment. And that's why she's saying, like, yes, very good. And then she's like, on second thoughts, give me the warship. Because she doesn't want to go to this party with Zakawi.
Well, I thought it was just that she didn't want to skeezer looking at her ass all night. That's Skaffen.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We have to agree to disagree on that one.
Sure. The phrase young man in this book has been constantly associated with Zakawi, though. And also...
Yes, but you can't be 100% sure. You're speculating.
This might be one of these things that I know Zakawi's character a little better. And...
Yeah, no, but it's still speculating.
I think that's the joke. Anyway, so favourite character in this episode, Sharon?
Zenny.
What did you like about Zenny?
Well, it's a cute little Furby.
You just like the cute little Furby?
Yeah. But it was also like an evil, cute little Furby. It's basically
Is it evil? At what point is it evil?
It's definitely not nice.
I mean, it's an intelligence from beyond the stars that you can not calculate or comprehend.
I don't trust it.
Yeah, and it's a 1,000,000-ton warship.
Murders thing, like whole planets.
Well, it could if it wanted to.
Yeah, and it really knows that.
Yeah. And this is one of our reasonably rare, up until this point, interior views of the culture. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts about the culture after this bit?
What do you mean, though?
Well, sometimes you think they're just a bunch of effete ponces.
I don't think there's that rare now to see them like this.
Well, there's only been a couple of chapters in the books we've read so far.
Yeah, but this whole book is really... Because Sma, they're so open about Sma.
Okay, but in most of the chapters so far... In fact, this is the first time we've actually had lots of culture protagonists talking to each other. It's been Sma in another world.
Yeah, okay.
And then, Sma in the Wild West, and whereas this is Sma in the culture.
Well, I just thought this was really more a chapter about the mind and the machines.
Yeah. Well, that is the interior view of the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like we said, this is the first time we've really had the machines talking to each other. And they're quite amusing while they pause time and have their little chats.
Yes.
Without... and you just think of all the conversations they're having around the meat bags. Yeah. Not that they worry. I think mostly the meat bags are so beneath them they don't worry too much about what they're up
Pretty
to.
Much.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've been going on a fair amount of time now. Thank you, everyone, for listening all the way through. We do appreciate your company. Sheridan, what's next?
Chapter 11.
Oh, Chapter XI.
Isn't that 11?
It is, but if we don't specify that, it gets even more confusing than it already is.
Oh, true. Sorry, yes. Okay.
Yes, because what we had was just Chapter 3, and now it's Chapter XI. Okay. All right, thank you, folks, for listening, and we will try and be back as quickly as we can. Sheridan's got a big assignment to write, but she's always looking for excuses to procrastinate, so you never know your luck in the big
Probably
city.
6 or 7 in the next week.
All right, we'll be back soon.